night. So thank you.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, Jessica. This was amazing. If you would like anyone to follow you on Twitter or Facebook or email, you could also leave that in the chat box.
I will do.
So-
Possibly not Twitter, though, because I tend to be quite vitriolic on that. I won't want to give you the wrong impression.
Oh, it's Twitter. So yeah. So thank you so much. And next up, we have Sarah. I believe Mary is next, right? Yeah. Okay.
That's right.
Mary.
Hey there.
Hi, Mary.
I'm going to share my screen. So this is in a PowerPoint. Let me pull it up for you. And I hope this works. Okay. Oh my goodness. Slideshow.
Yeah, that's great. We can see it.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Okay, so what I'm going to be showing you is work that really came to its fullness during at the onset of COVID, and I don't know if, let me see if I can, there you go. And these are drawings that are of birds, particularly birds in murmuration. And if you've seen a murmuration, you know how incredibly magical they are. And I think that, you know, I draw birds as metaphors. So anyone who has seen a murmuration knows that there's magic to them. You think about all of these birds flying in formation, collectively swarming, unanimously agreeing, morphing themselves, and you into an almost infinite array of fluid shapes. No bird in my drawings are alike, and no bird in a murmuration is alike. So it became, as I started doing these drawings, I realized that this was very much a study of social distancing as well. Everything had to be negotiated, all space is negotiated to allow for thousands of individual flight paths. Let's see. Oh my goodness, it's not letting me. It's okay. Let's see. Good. Okay, beautiful, beautiful quote, very eloquent. It's been attached to my drawing board for almost the duration of making these pieces. Just a lovely quote to have. You know, it is a human thing to dream creatures. I would say maybe it's a human thing to dream in creatures. And I think it speaks to the relationship between what we imagine and what we create, that intermingling. As I've had this quote up for a while, I've started to consider, what if it wasn't so binary? You know, that there's kind of a dichotomy between something concrete and something that's not concrete, maybe. So these are questions that are moving my work forward, I think. I want to give you a little background to these large pieces that you're going to see. You're going to be seeing panels that are 5 feet and 12 feet, and those are really large pieces. I started by making, and I know there's a little bit of a time constraint. I started making very, very small pieces, and really small pieces. And I started making them in pencil. Kind of a little bit after I started sculpting, actually. So I didn't realize the sculpture came first in my slide. 2018, I started working on these small sculptures of dead birds. Dead, decaying, stunned, often at the moment of crashing into windows, or sort of very resiliently resisting that impact of the window by writing themselves. So this work continues. I'm working toward an installation of these pieces. So when they are installed, they cast their shadow back onto the wall. There became, here's a small little piece of a little dead bird, which is a whole other series, the sculpture pieces. In 2018, I started drawing very small birds, 3-inch birds. And I would wake up early in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, and had a daily drawing practice. So this is, I'm showing you this slide so that you can get a sense of the material that I use. This is a translucent synthetic vellum. It's translucent, it's really like film, and it's translucent enough so that I can layer drawings and get what you would think of as an old school photographic double exposure when they get layered. So this is what the material looks like. Here's what the piece looks like when it's scanned, and you really get a sense of the quality of light of the material. And all of the work is done in graphite, it's done in pencil. So for quite a while, I was doing these very small drawings. And then the drawings transitioned and they became larger. There's more sculpture happens, and I get to what I want to show you today, which are two panels, two very large panels. In the early days of the pandemic in late 2019, my dearest friend was gravely ill. And he started telling me stories about, kind of inexplicable death that was spreading through his in-laws' village in Italy. We didn't know what COVID was at that time, but we started to talk about what art does in the face of the incomprehensible. We had already had conversations about how our senses of time had changed, in our Trumpian American, our version of America, the dissonance that happened between knowing a truth and having that truth simultaneously be erased. So we started to have these conversations about what art could imagine and the importance of art. I want to talk a little bit about why the crashing birds that you're about to see. Obviously, the work is personal work as well, and so like those birds that crashed into a pane of glass while looking at something beyond the window. Let me get rid of this. I realized that I was drawing that moment of awareness of shadow, and wondering if you had that momentary glimpse, would it be enough to write yourself? It really, I mean, it was a big aha. And visually, I recognize that interactively, the window is the only plane of separation between the viewer and the birds, and that window is invisible. I didn't draw a pane of glass, but it is implied that it is there. You either allow that pane of glass to be there or you don't, but I drew it with the idea that these birds were all hitting this window, or miraculously righting themselves and not hitting the window. So let me find the next slide. Alan became very, very ill, and this work became increasingly harder to look at, and it actually has evolved into becoming a scroll. I started working on it little by little. Let me find, and here it is. So it's 5 foot by about 3.5 feet high, I guess, 45 inches high, 5 feet wide. And I'll show you some details from it. So the work is now being, this piece is being worked into a scroll so that the person viewing it can take their time on unfurling it. Here we go. Detail. I'm going to show you a few details. And they're just moments from this overall piece. And they're, all these birds are about 3 inches. I'm not a birder. I'm very much a city person, and I guess I don't draw recognizable birds, but they are metaphors for me. And just to see it one more time. I'd love to talk about this in someplace else. I'd like to talk about time and how these drawings evolved to allow me to visually depict how my sense of time was changing. Not just the sheltering in place and time, losing track of time, but the liminality of that, of this time. That time was conflating. And in doing this, okay, so the drawings got bigger and bigger, and now I am working on a 12-foot murmuration panel. The orientation of the panel changed from horizontal, this is the beginning of a piece, to vertical, which is actually this is a piece from earlier this week. These are 2 of the 3 panels, and here is the first panel. So they are really, they're almost 5 feet wide and 12 foot high. So changing this orientation, changing the orientation made the drawing of the pieces much more immersive, and viewing the work, because it goes from floor to ceiling, you become part of the piece. There is no invisible pane of glass. There is no separation. You're right there. And it's a murmuration that, how are these birds navigating this space without bumping into each other? And as I was talking about how my sense of time had changed, I realized that when I changed the orientation from horizontal to vertical, I was also changing, it also reflected my sense of the layers of time. So there are moments in this big panel where birds are walking across the sky. It's the same sky that other birds are flying in. That I was just simultaneously, or at least wanted to simultaneously in the drawing, be able to depict that. There are more moments than this little guy right here. But this is the only slide I have right now of the piece. It's hard to photograph because it's so tall. And finally, my friend died in 2020. And I continued to make these very personal scrolls. This is the last slide. And these little, well, and I'm going to stop the share of, stop share. Okay, there you go.
Thank you so
So I
much,
hope-
Mary.
You're welcome. I hope I didn't go over.
No, don't worry about it. It was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing these pieces of, you know, your reflections, your thoughts, your responses toward birds, nature, the pandemic, everything. So this was amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
And
you for
if you
having
if you would like to leave your Instagram account for your art, for example, or any other contact account, you could feel free to use the chat box for that.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. And Sarah, who do we have next?
We have Bob,
Okay.
Bob Sanford.
Mhm. Hello, Bob.
Okay. Hello. Let me
Hi.
get this screen shared here.
Okay.
There we go.
Yep, we can see.
Okay,
Mhm.
I'm going to present a couple of things. Everybody see? Yeah, I'm going to present a couple of things that are related. The first will be, as it says, an excerpt from a short essay that I wrote that you can find on my website. And the piece that I'll show after that is related. You could say this falls under the category of how a practice of mythopoetic presence opens to an encounter with matter as muse. So, this squared up log before us came from the pin oak in our front yard. And I'll say here that pin oak does not look like that. It's really extraordinary. As a matter of fact, the base of the limb that broke off doesn't look like this. There's only sections of it that do. Anyway, one morning I woke to find a large limb lying on the ground. Its branches took up a third of the yard. Curiously, its leaves were still green, though the wood was quite dry. Yet there it lay, and I wondered what log turned to lumber might become. 3 logs sat in my workshop for months. I hesitated. Every piece of equipment relied on starting with the mostly squared up piece of lumber. How to hold it in all its organic form and encourage it to yield to geometric intentions. Now, for brevity, I'll leave out what was at the same time a technical and poetic procedure that revealed this beautiful wood you see here. But sort of toward the end of that procedure, I set it on end, the log on end, and contemplated its beauty. Opening to possibility, I wondered why I didn't lay it horizontally as it grew, fell, and landed. I tried this and knew immediately that this was wrong somehow. Its desire was embodied in the vertical. The co-creation before us is and is becoming. While I eventually made something else of it, for now it is making something of us. I write as a witness giving testimony. It stands before me as a monolith, a monument to the unity of nature and thought, the organic and the abstract. Honoring both in the poesis of technique releases the organic beauty of the wood in a way utterly unique. Its call is less opaque. Married in the poetics of technique, the abstract and the organic have birthed a living, speaking being. The only way to convey its visceral impact is poetically, for viscera are the seat of poetic consciousness, our bodily resonance with the interiority of the world. The monolith's mass is the substance of organic imagination accessible through the planar lenses of flat, parallel, and perpendicular surfaces. As though peering into the eyes of the tree, I gaze into its soul, which radiates out and resonates with my own, a sympathetic vibration of the hearts of kin. When siblings sing, their voices blend in ways no other can. They sing as one and many. Matter never stands alone as creative media. In the intimacy of the creative act, the media is the relationship and all it embraces. We are the media. The thought, intention, imagination, substance, and interiority of shop, smith, and limb intermingle. Shaped, it is a monolithic union of cooperative intent and incarnate reciprocal gesture, alive with mythic resonances. There is hope here for we who, by our alienation from nature, stand at the precipice. So here's a little close-up. You can see the texture of the wood, hopefully a little better there. One thing I'll say is that the tree in the front yard nearly destroyed our house when a drought hit. And so the relationship of the tree is definitely at issue here. And this was an offering, I think, in some ways. Okay, and here's a shot of the limb severed from the tree, having fallen. And here you can see the base of the tree. The wood is just normal oak, but the section that I got, it just chose because it was straight. I had no idea what was in it, and then discovered that beautiful wood, and I've been using it in projects. One thing I'll say is that I'm fascinated by the intersection of organic and the abstract. And so this particular piece gave birth to some work, and I'm going to share one piece with you. This is a jewelry box. It's approximately 18 inches long, about 10 or 12 inches high. And here I see the intersection of the organic and the abstract, because the materials for the front and the diamond shape on top are from the tree. And you see how varied the grain is. And I remember laying this out, the drawer faces for it, laying it out in such a way where I had plenty to choose from. And so I could pick the ways that the different cross sections interacted. So there's a certain symmetry, a certain art, a way of seeing that's built into this. Okay. So to me, it just adds such a wonderful energy to the abstract form of the box. Here's a front view. You can see, for example, that there's a knot near the top right that's echoed and mirrored in the top left. That actually, because that came from the same section of log, and you can see how certain pieces of the grain are interactive. So it's, to me, this expresses something of the relationship, the relationship between me and the materials. And here's a view of the top. Again, featured in the middle is the, and then the side. Okay. That is all I have right there. I just open to any impressions and questions. One thing I'll say is that this was the beginning of a series of pieces that I've been doing that try to find ways to honor the beauty of the wood without forcing it to conform too much to my intentions. And wood is a force of nature even after it's harvested. I've had pieces self-destruct because of the forces built into the wood. So it's constantly, you're having to reckon with the materials. Okay.
Wow, this is beautiful. Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you. It's wonderful. The stories behind it, and you know, this whole idea of the material and the abstract, or the spirit and matter. It's just beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. You do have a couple of comments in the chat box.
Okay.
Jessica says, Bob, the jewelry box is stunning, and what a story. I love your interesting in the material and the abstract. Reminds me of various magic systems in my book. Sharon says, for some reason, the grain reminds me of Edvard Munch's painting, The Scream. Beauty from pain or chaos, especially from the story of the break from the tree, separation, divorce, something alchemical going on. And Jessica says, again, the top square reminds me of a window onto another world. It looks almost a sunlit window.
There's a beautiful moment in woodworking when, especially when you put the finish on, it's a bit like looking down into a pond with goggles. When you put on the goggles, there's this clarity and you can see into the depths, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, the window on another world, that was my reaction to that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like the way you put it, the goggles. Yeah, it's great. Thank you so much.
You are welcome.
And Sarah, are we still have Dixie,
Hedy?
right?
Hedy,
Oh, Hedy,
and
yes.
then Dixie.
And
Yeah.
then Dixie. Okay. Hello, Hedy.
Hi, Rula.
Hey. So Hedy, you'll be sharing your screen?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'll start right away then. Let me see. Is it visible
We
to
can see,
everybody?
Yeah, wonderful. This is from your recent book, right? Taste of the Earth.
Yes, I'm gonna see if I can control and move. Yeah. Last time when I had a PowerPoint, I couldn't see the top, so I don't want this to happen again. Yes, so it is my latest book, The Taste of the Earth, for which I painted on the cover the Eye of Horus. And in the book, there is an extensive section titled Meditations over the Eye of Horus. For the ancient Egyptians, the Eye of Horus was symbolical, and each of its parts was symbolized one of the 6 senses. For ancient Egyptians, thought was a sense. And what is fascinating is that for the ancient Egyptians, the seat of thought was the heart and not the brains. That's why they didn't preserve the brains after someone died. So I will be reading excerpts from an extensive section titled Meditations over the Eye of Horus. And each section is written in turn focusing on one of those senses. And it's a series of hybons ending with a litany. So let me see. As an introduction, I'll just read that in ancient Egypt, the Eye of Horus came to be known as Wadjet, the most powerful of protective amulets made of gold, silver, lapis, wood, porcelain, and carnelian. The Wadjet's 6 parts represented the shattering of Horus's eye and was associated with one of the 6 senses as a specific fraction. What I tried to do in these meditations, I grew up in Egypt, was born there, and I juxtaposed ancient Egyptians' rituals, myths, beliefs with personal memories alongside different times and spaces relevant to either my own trajectory or to Egyptian history. So I will start with the sense of smell, for which I will read only 2 hybons and then read the entirety of the sense of touch. I have chosen to print on the page the symbol, which is that corner, the part of the Wadjet that points to the nose and looks like the nose, and written the word in Arabic, Shem, because I just kind of wanted to have a syncretism between different elements and make them present, also the linguistic. So I can still see the henna trees awaiting like guardians by the 2 pillars at the entrance of our home in Heliopolis. At night, the creamy blossoms released their pent-up fragrance, enveloping us in its mantle, guiding us in the darkness, while the Bawab, our janitor, slept in his narrow room under the staircase as though inside a pyramid. In the Song of Songs, the beloved compared Solomon to a cluster of henna blossoms. His cheeks were beds of spices. He was a bundle of myrrh resting between her breasts. The moonflower blooms only in total darkness, all eyes wide open. My friend Mona would bring to class her boyfriend's handkerchief soaked in Old Spice. Shem, the deferred touch of a lover's approach. Or else, how could the pungent smell of a coat hanging on a hook, reeking of frying emanations, cause a body to ache with longing? And wasn't it during his Egyptian campaign that Napoleon wrote to Josephine, begging her not to bathe as he was on his way? Have we lost the animal? My cat sniffs dirty socks and underwear, mouth agape with mesmerized stare. I knew each of my baby's smell. The skin remembers the scent of essential oils, an invisible presence. So that was just an excerpt out of the sense of smell, and I will be reading the sense of thought in its entirety. So thought in Arabic means fikr. This part of the Wadjet represents thought symbolized by the eyebrow. My mother's perfectly traced eyebrows punctuated her mute directives in a secret language that controlled our pulse. When she'd say, "قلبي كش زي الزبيبة," you have shrunk my heart into a raisin, we feared the next step, that of erasure, with the sempiternal "دوبتي قلبي," you have melted my heart, as sugar dissolves in water. Ancient Egyptians believed the heart to be the seat of consciousness and wisdom. At the final judgment, it was weighed against Ma'at ostrich feather to allow the deceased to cross the pathway to the field of reeds. Is this wherefrom we get our sense of love in connection with the heart? Does a thought espouse the rhythm of a heartbeat? When we forgive, don't we feel our heart lighter, freed from the ballast of bitterness and resentment? The wind sweeps the grass all over the Nine Valley. Flowers bend their necks. Senet, or the game of passing, led players through the 10 regions of darkness before rising dawn, offering a glimpse of immortality. I was often on my father's lap as he faced his backgammon's opponents at the club. I still feel the throw of dice on the wooden board, sense his excitement with each pawn placed in my hand. Nefertari is portrayed playing Senet solo in her sheer linen dress and gold bracelets. Was she conjuring fate or her inner self, bracelets clanking together with each casting of lapis and ebony sticks? Through sepia lenses, I watched my grandmother on her wheelchair playing solitaire for hours. Was she weighing the odds of walking again, despite Lourdes and her daily Bible reading? Her ghost wrapped itself in an ink wash around my mother, guiding her hands as she aligned cards time after time. Borges was haunted by an eternal chess game in which God moves the player and he the piece. What God behind God originates the scheme? Dios mueve el jugador y este la pieza. ¿Qué Dios detrás de Dios la trama empieza? I play solo on the white page. Languages mold my thoughts and feelings. My father placed blessed medals in the foundation of our home in Heliopolis. He made sure to add kharaza zar'a, the blue bead, in its four corners. Invisible blue eyes watched over our sleep, but kept him safe only for a few years. Were they asleep when he was on his deathbed? Spells and amulets covered vaults and coffins to ensure Egyptians a safe crossing in their last voyage, oftentimes in couples. Beatrice guided Dante towards his paradiso's higher spheres within the folds of a rose of light. Will love keep hearts pure and light? In which sort of paradise did my parents reunite? Is illicit love a sacrilege in the hereafter? In Thebes, Hatshepsut designed a tunnel between her burial chamber and her advisor's Senenmut. With his name carved on her mortuary temple walls, was she hoping they'd enjoy together eternal breeze? Liquid words swallowed phantom limbs, awaken lust for a lost body. I've always found it strange that I'd still remember our phone number from half a century ago, when those from successive homes in Beirut, Baghdad, Athens, Brussels, and Tucson vanished. 63869 flows in my mind like beads running from a broken necklace. This Heliopolis number and the one in Michigan, where we've lived for decades, wrap the circle. And Ouroboros, merging time and space within a house we didn't build, but where we've planted so many seeds, it has become our field of reeds. Ashen flowers rise out of memory's embers, echoing your voice. The memory of the only day it rained during recess at the Mère de Dieu College in Cairo. The memory of a sparkle of hope in extinguished young eyes shut off for no reason. The memory of the washerwoman hanging sheets, the wind shrouding her over rooftops. The memory of Hypatia of Alexandria teaching philosophy, astronomy, and sciences. The memory of the widow's tears clinging to her cheeks like dew at dawn over leaves. The memory of Sister Emmanuel's life among the Zabbaleen, Egypt's trash collectors. The memory of wanting to walk through fire and memory's fire soaring as the phoenix. The memory of the Khamsin blowing hot, sandy air for 50 days through closed shutters. The memory of my first Arabic poem about befriending a bird. عصفورتي عصفورتي طيري إلي ورفرفي يا سلوتي في خلوتي. Ruffle your wings and come soothe my loneliness. The memory of manuscripts and scrolls burned in the Library of Alexandria by Romans, Copts, and Muslims. Thank you.
This is just gorgeous, Hetty. Thank you so much. We're very honored to have you with us. And the way you weave your experience, your scholarship, your outstanding poetic creativity, I mean, it's just wonderful. Thank you so much. This is amazing. And The Taste of the Earth is just an incredible book. So
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here and to enjoy all these wonderful presentations and inspiring thoughts. It was a wonderful evening.
Thank you for being part of it. And I love your Egyptian accent when you're reading the Egyptian parts. It's amazing. It's, in perfect context. Thank you. And next, we have Dixie, right? Hello, Dixie.
Hello.
Hi, we're so happy to have you with us today.
Well, I'm happy to be here, and I'm going to share a screen with you guys. Let me see. Are we ready for that? So just take me a second.
Yeah, we can see it now.
Okay. Right. I'm Dixie, and I'm an artist living near Portland, Oregon, in the stunning Willamette Valley. And I'm really happy to be able to do the work that I do, and I'm excited to share this with you here today. Matisse said, "In my paintings, I wish to create a spiritual remedy." And this is something that I hope to do with my small talent as well. I believe very strongly in the healing power of beauty. And I spend a lot of time orchestrating encounters with beauty, largely by being outdoors and with nature. I take many photos, and I find that this is a way to imprint the colors, textures, and shapes to take back with me to the studio, where I hope they infuse and energize my work. So I'm going to show you the first few slides here are of some photos and the pieces that they inspired. And I use the term photo reference very loosely. As you can see, it's all about the color and the texture coming home with me, and then the pieces that follow almost immediately. I love this one. And this brings us to my circle forms. I've made over 100 of these, and I call them eccentric circles, acemic circles, meditation circles, sometimes misshapen mandalas. This one is a form that I repeat often. Rumi said, "We came whirling out of nothingness, scattering stars like dust. The stars made a circle, and in the middle we dance." These pieces are like meditative dances to me. I start with one or more layers of intuitively selected color, using inks, pastels, a variety of water media usually. And after I've had some time to reflect, then I add the lines radiating out. The background, the circle, the center of the circle form one image, and the lines radiating out are really the meditative part of this process for me. I find that creating an image and then partially obscuring it creates a whole new image and a whole new way of looking at what is underneath. So repetition, especially of my fine lines, plays a big part in a lot of the work that I'm currently doing. Again, looking at what lies underneath, then partially obscuring to create something entirely new. And here are a few of those images. I also love color, as you might imagine by looking at these pieces. The colors of nature find their way into my work, and the beauty of nature, I hope. So these days, my art is increasingly influenced by Acemic writing. And not long ago, I discovered that there was a name and a whole movement associated with a form that I'd been doing all along. Acemic writing is writing detached from language, and Acemic art incorporates Acemic writing. And even when I was not making art, I had been filling journals with this type of writing that just seemed to flow from me. And my husband said, my hands are dancing when I write this way. So Acemic writing has just resonated very strongly with me and opened up new paths of expression and pathways for ideas that weren't meant for verbal expression. Detached from language, the characters and patterns find a way to express what written words cannot. Intuitive, free, there's meaning and ideas there, but you must find them. And these are those Acemic images. And just a couple more. I hope you like this. So that's it for me. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Dixie. These are wonderful. They're so, I don't know, it's like they induce meditation, you know, so they're part of my everyday Facebook newsfeed, and they just bring a smile on my face, you know, whenever I see them. It's just sudden peace, sudden, I don't know, calmness. And the language that you're saying, the language that is detached from our language, it's actually there. We see it, we feel it, we kind of understand it, but not in our own language, just by looking at these beautiful masterpieces. Thank you so much for sharing them with us, Dixie. They're wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Rula. Thank you all. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Okay, so yeah, we do have a couple of comments here. Jade says, Dixie, such lovely, hopeful flowers and meditations of circles. Jessica says, Dixie, I love the sun iris motif, and I love the use of the script too. Reminds me of a great book on calligraphy a few years ago. Bryony and Amy say the circle images remind me of spore prints, so organic. Jessica shares the book on calligraphy. And Hedy says, fascinating art and inspiring Acemic writing. Thank you once more, Dixie.
Thank you.
So I guess I'll be sharing a couple of poems today. Well, this poem, I've been writing a few poems. I reached Lebanon, which is my ancestral hometown, my nearest ancestral hometown, Amun, which is a city, village in Lebanon. It is in the north of Lebanon. It's not a city at all. It's a budding village, and we are surrounded by lots of olive trees, fig trees, grapes, cypress trees. So it's, you know, the typical Mediterranean village, the rolling hills and all that. And I find that very inspiring. I traveled after 2 years of being locked in because we live in Dubai, and you know, pandemic and all, we just can't travel. And we were at home most of the time, just like so many of us. So I'm going to share a poem that I didn't write now. This is a poem that I've written a few months back when I was still in Dubai, and I was daydreaming about the day I will come back and see all these olive trees. For me, I mean, there's nothing more inspiring than an olive tree. I have this very special connection with olive trees. I can feel them. I can speak to them. I don't know. I mean, there's this really, really strange and wonderful connection that I have with them. And, you know, when I miss home, it's the olive trees that I think of first thing. And it's also, you know, the symbol of the olive. So olive trees have been symbolic in mythology, in religion. It's a symbol of the Mediterranean. It's a symbol of peace. It's the symbol of hope. There's a poem that I wrote called Meditations on an Olive. And this poem was actually influenced by Hilda Doolittle's poem on Adonis. Adonis, which is a local Phoenician god. So Phoenicia, as in where I am now, Lebanon. Adonis was also a god figure in Greek mythology as well. So her poem was about Adonis and about how people can also be like Adonis in a sense that they go through pain, they go through death metaphorically, and then they kind of, you know, there's this resurrection of hope. And I saw the same thing with the olive tree. So here goes. We have all been pressed coldly, just like you, only to embalm wounds with the oil from within and anoint rites of passage. We have survived deluges, after which our existence became a fine sign of life, carried by the unclipped beak of the dove of hope. Where there's an olive, there's a Gethsemane, an impending scene of crucifixion and resurrection, the clutches of betrayal and clinches of friendship. Where there's an olive, there's the cycle of life, tear dropping from the unbowing, leaf-laden boughs that remain tall but humble. It's a short poem. Now, I'm currently working on a poetry book that is about the area where I'm from, and the full sensual experience that you get from anywhere you are is through food. You have the 5 senses, you have the history, you have the backstories, you have lots of stories in one simple dish that you prepare. There's one that I wrote today, and it's about a special type of ice cream that we have here. It's also a popular ice cream in Turkey. I think that the recipes, they kind of vary from place to place, but it's popular in Syria, in Turkey. It's called ashta here in Lebanon. So I wrote an ode to ashta. And it's not a recipe, but it has some of the ingredients that are used in it. There's an ingredient called salep. I don't know if some of you might know it. It's the roots of a weakened orchid flower. In Lebanese, we call it sahlab, and they use it in order to thicken the ice cream and give it a stretchy consistency. They also pound this ice cream after it's frozen. They use mastica or mastic to give it flavor and scent. And what else? Well, ashta itself means cream. So it's a kind of clotted cream, and it's you also have some pistachios garnishing it, and also inside. So an ode to ashta. This is still a work in progress. I wrote it today after having some very good ashta. We are here because of you. Because of you, we are thirsty for water and all other necessary pleasures in the heat of life. Cream curdling with salep, whirling in the spirit of orange blossoms, sweetened with memories, dreams, and reflections. So this is where Jung came in. Freeze, and you are humbly pounded into tamed, malleable, gummy glory that shows how even ice can stretch without breaking. Like snow tracing the heads of the mountain range, bridging lands unbound to boundaries or binaries, you come in frozen torches, pierced with pieces of Aleppo field jewels. I praise every pebble of pistachio, guarding the secret of your mystic mastic. So this is one very good dessert that I would highly recommend to anyone who visits the Middle East or the Mediterranean. And there's one more very short poem about the essence of rose. I don't know if I can share a photo of it here. Let me try. I have the photo on my Instagram account because I just had it yesterday. So some of you may be familiar with this cold red drink, which is made from rose water and of course food coloring. It's supposed to smell like roses and taste like roses. Could you see it? So this is it. And now I have to read the poem, so I have to go back to the poem. The spirit of roses is conjured in this glass, a ruby chalice smelling of rosariums and stories. Tell us again how you were shed from Aphrodite's eyes. Remind us why we, like Mark Antony, fall in love again as we slip into the essence of your fragrance. Cups frozen into the obscureness of translucence. We doodle with transparent lines on the coating fog. And through the hearts and smileys sketched, see the sanguine colored juice through the now transparent parts. Light has entered, revealing the core of the rose. Is this how wounds become places where the light enters you? In one motion, our spoons skate through the icebound layer, cracking into the heart. Through that, we drink it all in, the spirit, the tears, the wound, and the light. Now, this poem was written before I came here, so again, it was one of those times when you dream of going back home. What are the stuff that you're gonna do? What are your favorite foods and dishes and drinks that you're gonna be having? And this popped up. So thank you so much for bearing with me. And I was wondering if anyone else would like to give it a shot at the open mic right now before we finish. Claude, yes, wonderful. So Professor Claude Barbry. Let me unmute you. Okay, I think you're unmuted now.
Hey, hello everybody.
Hi.
Can you see the poem? Is it sharing?
Not yet, but I think we're getting there because it said that you started the screen sharing. Yeah, we can see it now.
There we go.
Okay. I'll read this. celebrate the art and the themes that were today in so many ways. I spent a lot of time in Quebec City. I lived there some of the year. And I was thinking quite a bit when I was looking at the art and the woodwork. So much Quebecois artists really share in that ardor. Jacques Riopel, his last mural that's in the art museum in Quebec is about birds. It's a 30-foot mural of birds that he painted in memory of Joan Mitchell, the American artist that was his partner. And so the sense of the grieving and the loss that Mary so beautifully rendered reminded me very much of Riopel's final mural. And also too, the sense of Dixie's beautiful calligraphy like structures and remind me quite a bit of a lot of Quebecois art that opens up to a kind of portals like Rothko's, portals and doors. I felt a sense of stepping in through the mandalas, very much that is celebrated with a lot of Quebecois art. So some of these themes really came to mind, and also the woodwork, which is especially about this poem. American elms in Quebec, down by the river, along the cliffs, there are elms that would take about 6 people to hold their arms together at the base. They're almost sequoia-like bases. Even though they're elms, they're 300 years old and 400 years old in some cases, which are very old for the elms. And some of them survived the elm disease. I had 3 elms in my courtyard by the wall that I had to cut down last year because of the elm disease. And that was a great mourning and a great loss. So my love of the elms very much reflects also being an American in Quebec. And so even the title is about immigration, about a kind of a sense of coming into another community and where one is welcomed and grows. So this poem is American Elms in Quebec. Ulmus americana, white and water elms, rouge and silver ironwood, the kin of ash and gum. You twist and turn from all the histories inside, like us that pass along the river's tidal ebb. Our ancestries, apetalous and driven wide, as wind dispersed the beginnings in our blood. When set to sea with tempered sails, we crossed to build another life and speak the tongue of strangers who became our families. Before the arboretums drawn and planned for village greens and public garden parks, your great geometries of branches reached and ramified into each seismic stand, withheld for years the gem fluorescent crowns from human eyes uplifted to the stars until they found the stars within your boughs and sold your heavens for their clearing grounds. But here in hillside soils you love remains the toughened bark that grew for centuries, deciduously wreathed with Quebecois and quondam lineage, as though diverged from common wood contested at the root, you grew to share their singularities. The legacies of treaties signed beneath your governance of shadows, where the ink of generals and nations mark the peace, their languages still circle in your grain. Now signatures of vines surround your stead. Calligraphies of taupe and sable brush your fading silhouettes against the west, as if to cipher fell precarities, pandemic grafts, the larval spores that stick to beetle wings and paper tiger moths, perpetuate the plural course of plague, with yellow wilt replaced by fallen snags, their hollowed caves beloved by spotted owls. Your tears of moonlight cut and sawn to sell, reduced to hockey sticks and bishop chairs, to binding ropes and hubs for broken wheels, become your testament to transience. Yet come what may, your spirit will not yield. The haunts of the immortals turned within each held expanse of every outstretched limb. And as a dancer is transformed by air into their freed quintessence by the dance, you draw upon the auguries of chance to prosper still and flourish in your time, with or without our reverence and praise.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. I mean, it's amazing how, as I said earlier, you know, this special connection with trees. So it's so inspiring. It is poetry, actually. So thank you so much, Claude. And thank you everyone else for being here tonight or today, depending on where you are, and for sharing all this incredible art. Our next time will be on the 8th of August. So it's going to be a little bit sooner than 4 weeks. It's going to be after 3 weeks. For those of you who have Facebook accounts, or actually, no, we don't have a Twitter account for Psychreative, but for Facebook, you could find us on Facebook. You can send me an email on the same address that where you registered for this event, and hopefully there will be many other Psychreative sessions, and many familiar faces and new faces will join. So this has been wonderful. This is our 5th month right now. So our next Psychreative would be a celebration on our first half year. So thank you all. And if you would like, again, so this is a call for submissions for Indelible, which is the literary and arts journal that I edit. Feel free to drop me a line. I still haven't set out the brief for the next issue, which will be in January 2022. But Indelible it's not a Jungian journal, but it is a journal that publishes art and poetry and other forms of writing from creatives of many, many different backgrounds. The website is indeliblelit.com. So here it is if you would like to go there, take a look at it, have a feel of the journal, and see some of the wonderful art and poetry that is there. So until we meet again, everyone take care, stay safe, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you all.